growing up, especially in my teenage years, I had this fear of being seen. I think I always, when I was 16, 18 years old, knew that I was wise beyond my years and I was more mature than the people around me. But I always would play small because I didn't want everyone to see like how in depth I was, how curious I was, how intellectual I was. So I would always kind of play small, but I had much to say and I knew that my words were impactful because they impacted me. So I know that's going to do the same for other people. I think where it all started was I graduated college, I got my dream job at an advertising agency, and 3 months into it, I remember having this like period of, oh my God, this is not what I thought it was gonna be. It wasn't glitz, it wasn't glamour. I was stressed every single day. And by that point, I had already dove into the world of mindfulness. I have been on a health journey since I was a teenage girl. So that's really the root of like how this all even was birthed, of like why I'm writing about being present and your thoughts and mindfulness, which we can get into later. But I remember learning so much before starting that job about, the only moment that matters is the now, and the future and the past don't exist, and you can only control what's in your control, not everything around you. And I felt like when I started that job, I completely forgot about everything that I learned. And I knew that I've always been a creative person. I've had many gigs since I was a teenage girl.
The Golden Flick.
Oh my God, yeah. Fashion blog, our t-shirt print.
Oh my God, TBT.
Oh God, TBT. So I always knew I was going to be this, some entrepreneur in some sense. And fast forward to October of 2019, my mom and I went to Paris and Copenhagen. And it was the first like paid time off that I took from work. And I remember just thinking like, I'm not answering any emails. I'm fully unplugging. I deserve this. And when I went to Paris, something in me just lit up again. I didn't feel stressed. I felt very calm. I was fully in the present moment. I wasn't thinking about work or my emails or my clients or my boss. I was just exactly where my feet were. And same thing that I felt when I was in Copenhagen. And on the flight back home, I thought, I'm going to create a brand about this, about really being present. And so that's where my brand Ecnu, which is a combination of French and Danish, it means here and now, came to be. But I was scared. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I was going to create. Was it going to be a clothing brand, an Instagram page? Was it related to my writing? And so I kind of just sat with it for a few months. I'm a very visual person, so I created my brand book and like figured out the color palette and the fonts and the design system. And it was just this fun little thing that I would work on after work, which got me more excited for my days. Because the worst thing is when you wake up and you're dreading your day. At least this was something I had on the side that was kind of giving me energy. But what happened, how it all really came to be or came to fruition was during COVID. At this point, it was March 2020, and I was feeling really stuck at work, and I needed a creative outlet. And ironically, the present moment was the last place I wanted to be in. We all didn't want to be where we were during the starting months of COVID. I either wanted to go back to my past, which was my college days or the summer, or fast forward to when that didn't exist anymore. And I thought to myself, now more than ever, I need to hold myself accountable for these truths and this wisdom that I learned from diving into the mindfulness world. And that's what led me to create this Instagram page. So it first started off as a mood board. I didn't share my own writing. It was just me curating things I found on Tumblr or, Pinterest or whatnot. And one day I just thought, if other people are sharing their words and I'm being inspired by it on Pinterest and Tumblr, like what is holding me back from doing the same? And so one day I shared my own poetry and it was received really well. And slowly I started to get a lot of traction. Celebrities would be posting about it. Influencers that I looked up to would be posting about it. And that kind of gave me this confirmation of like, I'm following the right path, even though I have no idea where it leads. And I think the most beautiful thing, it's what you said earlier, is receiving those messages from people saying, I feel so seen, or I feel heard, or I thought I was alone in this. That's what kept me going. I think I always knew in the back of my mind I wanted to publish a book, but that felt so far out. I had a lot of imposter syndrome on that because I wasn't a big reader, contrary to popular belief. I only recently had got into reading, so the thought I had in my mind, which was a limiting belief of who am I to be an author if I don't even read that many books? But it all started on Instagram. And once I started to get a following and build this community, I thought, wait a minute, what if I can monetize off of this? Yeah. And so then the easiest way I feel like to monetize is let's create some merch. And so I poured my heart and soul into merch, which I'm proud of. But I remember the first day where I launched and I sold orders, I came home from work and I had to pack all the orders. And I remember thinking, this is the last thing I want to be doing right now. And that was like a sign of me being like, this isn't aligned. Something, the brand is, the ethos is, the mission is, but the actual way in which I deliver that wasn't, which was the merch. And that taught me a really big lesson of when things are meant for you, it will flow. And there was a lot of roadblocks on that journey. So I kind of stopped that, went back to the drawing board and just continued writing and allowed that to lead me, which then led me to my first book.
And what you touched briefly upon health struggles and your journey through all of that. What exactly through your healing journey and that health that started all of those issues for you, what was the moment where you said, I feel called to write a second book? Because your second book touches a lot upon your healing journey, whereas I feel like your first book doesn't really touch upon the health struggles as much. And your second book is very divinely led in a way. And I know we had a conversation too where you wanted to talk about God in your second book. And you had a conversation with your publisher rather, who, you know, kind of wanted you to go away from that. How did you know to follow your own heart and follow your passion and know, like, this is what my book is about and God has a big role in that?
So I'll start from the beginning of my health journey and how that led to like the books in general and the account. So it was when I was 18 years old, I had been failed by Western medicine several times, and that's what led me to explore Eastern medicine. So that's what got me into mindfulness. I started to read books about, you know, holistic health and listen to podcasts around the same topic and started to expand what was possible in terms of physical health. That's what got me really intrigued. And that's what started actually my healing journey, because every doctor I went to said it was all in my head. I had a lot of chronic pain, digestive issues, antibiotic after antibiotic wasn't helping. So I thought, I'm going to take this into my own hands. And that's when I got into meditation. That's when I got into breath work and just being still, which led to a deeper healing journey. Now, fast forward to January of 2023, I was properly diagnosed with endometriosis, which is a disease that affects the women's reproductive system. And I remember when I got the confirmation from my doctor, I remember crying so much that day, not out of fear, but out of so much gratitude, because it was like the first proper diagnosis. And now I knew what I was going to work towards. And so I prayed every single day, which deepened my faith. I mean, I grew up with faith, but not to the level that I have now. I would pray every day, you know, show me where to go, what to do, who to speak to, guide me on this path, because I am terrified. Like, I don't know what this means. I don't know how to get out of it. I've been dealing with health issues since I was 12. So I thought, like, this is the answer to all of my prayers. I ended up getting surgery, which was the answer to all my prayers. But what I discovered a month out was all of my symptoms came back. And that was really hard for me because I'm so present and I'm so, you know, mindful, and I live such a mindful life. So how am I here? And I had learned so much about our emotions and how they impact our bodies and how they can cause pain and symptoms, but I wasn't getting it. Clearly, my body was still feeling the symptoms. And that's what led me to my first spiritual awakening, which was dark night of the soul, begging and crying, a lot of heaviness, a lot of release. But I had this intuitive feeling that God did not place me on this path with this journey, with this gift, without a reason. And I knew that despite being at a rock bottom, I knew that it was going to birth something so beautiful that was going to transform my life and the lives of others. And a few months later, I started writing my second book, The Unlimited Power Within You, which really is about faith and resilience and overcoming life's biggest trials, and how the way in which we overcome them is all the tools within us. It is our soul, it is our inner wisdom, or it's in our intuition. Everything that we need, peace, love, joy, gratitude, freedom, is already inside of us. It's just peeling back those layers that condition us to believe that all of those things are outside of us. And that's all in the title. For me, though, my faith is what allowed me to wake up each day and not give up. Like, that was the truth of it. There was a lot of moments where I didn't feel strong. I didn't see an end out. Like, when someone would ask, like, if I tried to visualize my future, there was always like me with a health issue. I couldn't visualize a life without that, because that's all I've known. That was my trauma. And so God and my faith was such a big part of me not losing hope. And so that was kind of like the red thread throughout this book. And it was a channeling of sorts, because sometimes I would sit and I would write and I'm like, where the hell did this come from? Because like, I'm not that wise. Like, I'm not that smart.
You are, but
like, it was a level that I at the time couldn't fathom. And now in retrospect, I'm like, oh, every time I would sit down and pray or write, I would pray and say, God, please speak through me. And that's exactly what happened. And so when I sent this manuscript to my publisher, they flagged, it's a beautiful piece of work, but you mention faith and God and religion a lot. And that's something that is polarizing. So you will lose readers, but you also will gain some. So I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm going to change the whole thing. Like, I don't want to lose readers.
Right.
Like, that's,
you still think about the numbers and the success of it all.
Oh yeah.
And you put pressure on yourself in that way.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And that's like, this right now is my side hustle. I want to make it my main hustle.
Yeah.
And losing readers is not going to lead me to
Yeah.
make it my main hustle. But I sat with it and I thought to myself, the most important thing for me is authenticity. Because I know that when I show up authentically, the universe responds to that frequency and that energy. And I thought, if I lose that element, then I lose the entire story and the entire place in which I wrote it from. And so I made the decision to just keep it as it was. And I'm so grateful that I did, because I reread my own book every single day, because I need to remind myself and remember the truths that came through me. Because again, it came through me. I don't know where it came from, but it came through me. And so I wrote this book for myself. I wrote the first book for myself. It's all for myself, but the gift is in sharing that with other people, and that's where the fulfillment comes from.
I love that. And you mentioned too about having really dark moments and dark times. And it's such a human, universal feeling, right? We've all been there, and that's something that connects us all and bonds us over. But when you're in that deep, dark feeling and those dark times, it feels almost like you're in the bottom of a deep well, and it's so hard to get out. And you see a little sliver of light, but you can't, it feels impossible to get up there, and there's no ladder, you can't find the ladder. How did you, because I've been there so many times where I almost feel like I can't get out of it. How did you feel still, like you clearly trust by faith, not sight? How would you say that you felt the ability to be able to overcome all of that and not let that darkness wash all over you, and instead take it into a space that's very vulnerable? I mean, your books, you touch upon so many different topics: health, relationships, self-empowerment, self-discovery, and figuring out who you are, feeling lost, finding yourself again. How were you able to overcome all of that? Because I think sometimes people turn to other vices and turn their back away from the light, because the darkness sometimes feels very comfortable, because if that's all what you've known for a while, it feels so scary to get out of that. And you almost think, how am I going to? So how did you get out of that? And how did you force yourself to see the light and continue on that path?
I feel like rock bottoms are actually a really cool place to be, which sounds crazy. But when you really think about it, there's literally nowhere else to go other than up. And if you really believe that, you could use those dark periods for your greatest, highest good. I think for me, it was focusing, first getting really clear on what I wanted to experience out of this life. I want to feel free. I want to feel joy. I want to feel love. I want to laugh. I want to be abundant. And then realizing, wait a minute, I was not brought on this earth to suffer. Of course, suffering is part of all of our human experiences, but that's not why we're all here. We are here to experience joy and all the different strings that our heart can play, including the pain and including the sorrow. So I think first getting really clear on what do I want my life to look like and consist of, but then also what do I want it to feel like? And trying to evoke that feeling as much as I can every day. Joy is in the simple things. So I think one of the biggest lessons I learned was like anytime I was in a funk in the past, I would sit there and I would wallow and I would deprive myself so much of joy because I was like, well, I don't feel 100%. I'm not going to go out with my friends. Now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go on a walk or I'm going to listen to my favorite song. And even though today might be a shitty day, I'm still going to feel something joyful. I think also for me, which I'm so grateful for, is that I had this outlet to release those emotions. And for me, that's writing. For other people, it could be playing a sport. It could be music. It could be running. Like whatever that thing is for you that brings you so much joy, allow that to be your vice. Like allow that to be what you choose to do when you are feeling in that low vibration. I also never really asked for help, which I regret. I think that's like one of the biggest regrets I have in my life was I'm so vulnerable with my books and my writing, my Instagram. But when my friends would be like, hey, how are you? I would be like, oh, I'm good. And I would hide that smile. I think I've learned through that journey, it's okay to just show up as your messy self because we all are going through the same thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, praying and just asking for guidance, asking for a sign, show me where to go, what to do, trusting that even if it may not look like it right now, this is a really critical part of my story. And if you really believe that, you're always good with where you are. And now I still go through my rock bottoms and my funks, and they look really different now. They're not as heavy. They're painful, but they're not as heavy. And now I'm like, I've done this dance so many times by now that I just know that this means I'm going to up level in a really beautiful way if I just go right through it. And I think it's really important to allow yourself to feel those emotions. If you're angry, if you're lonely, if you're sad, if you're confused, like get into that seat of consciousness and observe everything that you're feeling. Don't attach to it, but then don't sit in that. Go out and do something that's a complete opposite, even though that might look hard.
I love that. And we always say marinate in those feelings. I feel like that's one of our favorite words to describe it, because when someone doesn't marinate in those feelings, again, don't let the marination process take days and weeks. You have to learn how to get out of that. But it's so important as well to feel the feels, because when you don't, that's something that you harbor within. And clearly you have figured out how to move on from that with what you were saying of finding ways that make you happy and bring you joy. You also spoke a lot on meditation and breath work. And I know meditation is such a huge thing that's a part of your daily life. You do it every morning. You practice the meditation, mindfulness of it all. And it's something I actually struggle with, of being present sometimes and learning how to meditate. How did you feel that meditation and through that practice, you were able to really ground yourself and be focused on the here and the now? That's your whole brand, right? It's that here and now, Ecnu. How did you find through meditation that helped you really focus on the presentness of everything and living in the moment and not future tripping, but not living in the past and using the past to guide your current self of what you've learned, but not letting it anchor you to something that wasn't serving you at the time?
Yeah. Beautiful question. For me, meditation is the greatest act of self-love that I could give myself. Every morning, I've been meditating for 35 minutes. I do a Joe Dispenza meditation, and it's now nothing conscious. Like when I wake up, I literally crave it because powerful things happen in that meditation. For me, it's opening up my heart and visualizing what I want my life to look like. So the idea of my first book came to me in a meditation. I just kept hearing this voice go for it, just go for it, just go for it. And then I started visualizing myself walking into a bookstore and seeing it on the shelf, and then seeing it on Amazon, and getting messages from people. And I just started to visualize all of that. It's a manifestation. It's a form of manifesting. So when I got out of that meditation, I felt so energized by that vision that I said, I'm going to take action on this. And that's the important thing, is taking action. So that's when I reached out to my now publisher. when it came time for my second book, the idea of it was planted in my heart many months prior to me writing it. And then one day I just woke up and I just heard this voice like, today is the day, today's the day. And then I started writing it, and here we are. Even I'm now writing a screenplay just like to push myself creatively and like see how far I could take it. The same thing came to me in my meditation, and it was a very full body. My heart was beating so fast. It was like a yes. And I trust that because I have proof in the past that when I lean into my heart center, things happen that are beyond my wildest dreams. Now, the reason why I think it's really important to create time for that kind of stillness, because when you meditate, you are just observing all of your thoughts. And I'm someone where I am prone to anxiety and stress, and my body feels it. And a lot of my health issues were stress induced. I now see that. It was my emotions that were causing my health stuff. And by every morning going into this practice and quieting my mind, relaxing my nervous system, and just being really present with my body and my thoughts, the moment I step off of the cushion or the bed, that's when the real meditation occurs. Because that was just a state that I was in. Now the real test is, can I embody that in my daily life? And so how that's impacted me is living a life of just peace. Like things that used to bother me don't bother me. Like took the wrong ferry or got off at the wrong ferry stop earlier.
Pause, what a pleasure.
Yeah, like I'm not like, oh my God, like we got off at the wrong stop or da-da-da. I'm like, oh, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I'm fine, nothing's wrong.
Totally.
And I'm more calm because of it. I'm more creative because of it. My intuition is so strong because of it. And I think for some people who struggle to get into that meditation, it doesn't have to be a 35-minute Joe Dispenza YouTube video or whatever. It's literally just going outside and using your senses. Like sit there without your phone, without any distraction, and just listen to the birds or the kids playing or watch the sun or just feel the wind and just use your senses and just be where you are, because that really is the only moment. Like time is such an illusion, and I'm learning that more and more every day. 99% of the things that we worry about don't even happen.
Oh, yeah. It's such a waste.
It's such a waste
energetically
of energy
in your brain.
Yeah. The past is a story we keep telling ourselves. We could rewrite that story any day. I thought that I was a girl with chronic illness. I cut that story out. I said, no, I had health issues and I'm not that person anymore. And so when you really think about it, like where you are, that is when you have the opportunity to feel the things you want to feel, to create the life you want to create. And if I could help anyone really find peace in that present moment, and that's the underlying thread with all of my work. It's like, it's now. Like that's where things happen, not yesterday, not tomorrow, it's now. Then I feel like I'm embodying that version of myself that I once wanted to be when I started this brand many years ago. Beautiful.